A harsh chuckle broke the office's silence, grating and raw, like a vulture's cry over a lifeless expanse. "Pack up your things, you're finished," my supervisor bellowed, his voice amplified for the audience of stunned colleagues. Every gaze in the room swiveled toward me. "Embezzling company money. You're through." He stood there, his indignation a poorly acted charade, his eyes gleaming with the thrill of malice, the kind of man who sharpens his spite in private. Beside him, the CEO's son Ethan wore a smug grin. "My father's already alerted the authorities," he said, his tone savoring the moment like a sweet treat after a feast. I kept my eyes fixed on the numbers dancing across my monitor, as if I could solve this trap with equations. My co-workers sat motionless, their expressions torn between shock and gratitude that the axe hadn't fallen on them. "What, no groveling?" my boss taunted, cocking his head with mock sympathy. "Speechless, huh, you pitiful number cruncher?" A stack of papers landed on my desk with a thud. "Termination, effective immediately. Sign them, or face legal consequences." I didn't budge. My pulse remained calm, eerily so. The second Ethan had entered the room, the truth had crystallized. This wasn't about stolen funds. This was personal. Ethan and I had never been allies. Our relationship was something darker. A mutual recognition of each other's edges, like two beasts prowling the same confined space, each waiting for the other to flinch. Months earlier, I'd spotted irregularities in the financial ledgers, a vanished transaction here, an unexplained cost there. The patterns were too precise, too intentional, and they always looped back to accounts Ethan could access. I didn't call him out. I didn't even hint that I'd noticed. Instead, I observed, quietly collecting fragments of his missteps. Then 2 weeks prior, an email landed in my inbox by mistake, an internal audit notification naming me as the prime suspect. No sender was listed, but none was needed. That same afternoon, I overheard Ethan and my boss in the break room, their voices hushed, punctuated by laughter. The setup was clear before it unfolded, but foreknowledge didn't dull the sting when the betrayal finally struck. Now, standing in the office's center, they believed they'd pinned me down, that I was the hunted. I didn't sign their papers. I didn't argue. In silence, I began clearing my desk, not in a frantic, humiliated rush, but with deliberate care. For the past month, I'd been constructing my counterattack, saving transaction records, photographing signed approvals, tracking wire transfers to shell companies. My final move had been planting a forged invoice, Ethan's handiwork. Among the documents he'd passed to my boss the previous week, a seamless match to the others I'd cataloged. I wasn't just gathering evidence. I was weaving a net so tight it would choke him. Each night, I'd return home and sift through my findings, not out of fear of failure, but because I wanted to relish the moment I'd hand him the proof and watch his arrogance crumble. The next morning, I skipped the office and went straight to the board meeting. The receptionist hesitated, her uncertainty palpable, but I strode in with the confidence of someone who belonged. My uncle, a former founding partner who'd sold his stake years ago, still cast a subtle shadow in these halls. The board members looked up, puzzled. The CEO's brow furrowed. I placed a sealed folder at the table's center. "Your son's handiwork," I said, offering no further explanation. They opened it. The atmosphere shifted. Pages turned, gazes hardened. The CEO's voice fell to a murmur as he traced the account transfers. These lead to his personal LLC. No one met my eyes. Their focus turned inward, calculating the damage, the fallout. As I moved to leave, Ethan stood in the doorway, his grin erased, his face drained of color. "What have you done?" he whispered. For the first time since the day before, I met his gaze. I showed them the truth. 20 minutes later, they summoned me back. Ethan was gone. The CEO began to speak, a mix of apology and negotiation, but I cut him off. "You'll publicly retract the accusation," I said, my tone leaving no room for debate. He gave a single nod. "And you'll release a statement to the press about your son's dismissal, with cause." A heavy pause followed, pride wrestling with pragmatism. Then another nod. As I turned to go, Ethan lingered outside, looking as though years had been carved from him in mere moments. "You could have just talked to me," he said. I stepped closer, our eyes locking. "I tried yesterday in front of everyone. You smirked. His flinch was subtle, but it told me the wound was deep. I didn't return to my desk. I didn't want the desk or the job. By nightfall, whispers of the audit had spread across industry channels. Ethan's name was everywhere, tied to scandal. In my apartment, with the lights off, I watched the city pulse beyond my windows. No rush of victory, no surge of joy, just stillness. Revenge, when executed with precision, doesn't burst like a celebration. It's the quiet click of a door you'll never reopen. They wanted me shattered. Instead, I walked away whole. And Ethan at last understood what it meant to be the hunted.